YouTube, we're back with more rudder action on the Airbus A380. Beautiful bird. This thing's gonna be awesome. Okay, side note, people. This thing is almost gone, okay? Foam safe. Look how expensive that crap is. Would have ripped me off, right? This is how I do this. Split 8/17 of 17. That means that on August 17th, I filled up my bottle, unless I forgot to mark it the second time or third time. Okay, so we've got this in here, and this is a brand new cap, okay? So it's sealed still. This is how I keep my CA from going bad. By two ways. One, using it, and two, I mark when I used it. Okay? Then you just pour it in from without the other bottle. See? And that's all you got to do, guys. It's pretty simple stuff. And then if you want to have a half full bottle so you don't spill it as much or whatever, you can cut it off like that, squeeze the air out of the bottle, and cap this thing off. Okay? And then I take my marker and I say, what is today anyway? 3/2? Split 3/2/2018. Okay, and then I can track how fast I'm using this stuff, so that when I go to buy more, I can get it. And then after a long time of doing that, you end up with something that looks like this, and you say, geez, I need to be better at not crashing. Alright, back to the moral of the story, which is we're going to finish this rudder. Alright guys, so we got this wing ready to stick over here. So now all we have to do is we just have to determine exactly where that's going to come out, which is going to be right in front of the blue. And the blue lines up pretty close, so we just need to make a hole right there. And that hole is going to go inside to get into this cavity here. So we're going to do that with a hot stick. Say hello to my little friend here. We're going to basically use this to put a hole in that going forward, okay? I normally don't use drills on planes like this, but this is just a weird application. So there's a trick too, and what you can do is you can heat this up just like you would with anything else. You don't really have to move it very fast. Okay, get that nice and warm. And then you'll just come in here and just spin it. Okay, so now we're into that cavity. I can see the cavity is totally opened. Okay? So now we have our hole, and it was a nice clean hole. So let's just see if it's big enough to fit this this thing in, okay? Oh yes, beautiful. Okay, so now that's going to allow us to drop down in there and look at this tight seam. Beautiful. That's weird. I didn't see that happen. Okay, so the other thing we got to do is we've got to get this taped over, and then once that's taped over, we should be able to hypothetically put an extension cord on, feed the extension. Yes, we're going to put an extension cord on because I do not want to fight with that later, okay? Because it's going to be a pain otherwise. Okay, so we're going to use this extension cord style. It's got a snap on it, okay? So that's nice and sturdy because this will eventually get glued. And then what we can do is we can stick this in here, even if it's on a temporary basis, which is... Yes, and then I can lift up the fuse and that will fall down to where I can reach it. And if we don't need the extension cord, we'll just take it off later. But we're not going to have that in there but 3 or 4 inches. Okay, so there you go, guys. Okay, so now this can get dropped in. So now the next step is we need to tape over this with a white piece of electrical tape. And then we need to get our vinyl applied, which we're going to be doing next. And that'll be shown in a different video, guys. So be watching for that. I'll show you how we made the decals. And there they are right there. and we'll show you how we did all this in some detail, okay? But it's just a separate video. It doesn't make sense with this build part. Okay, great. So the next step will be to go ahead and pull this out, and we'll get that white tape on there right now. Should be super duper easy. And this can be just any regular vinyl white tape, but preferably one that's going to be opaque. There's some that's shinier, and I'm not a big fan of the shinier stuff for this type of application. Plus, then if you ever have to paint or mark this, the shiny stuff won't take it. Okay? Okay, now let that relax. This stuff will stretch a little bit. Let it relax before you stick it down. If you do it really quick, it will give you problems. So you notice I went past because there was a couple of indisparities in the blue. There we go. We'll just push that down. Wrap the edge. And since it's vinyl, it'll wrap neatly. It'll just look like a panel line. And of course that can be touched up later if it needs to be. Okay, don't get your wire in there. And then we'll just trim it. Perfect, guys. That'll work really nice. Okay, so now our next step for us is going to be to go ahead and get this back on there, and then we'll pick up the 380 logo application on another video series, which I will have in the description below. Alright guys, so we've got the decals placed, and if they start peeling up at all like that, what I'll do is I'll just put a little CA over the edges, and then that will prevent it from coming down like that. I may go ahead and really, in terms of what colors need to be touched up, I wouldn't say that any of them need to be touched up, but I'm going to touch up at least one little area, and I'm going to show you where that is real quick, because it's easier to do now than when we've got that little rod in there. I'm going to use this hard piece of metal, because then I can just kind of draw it almost like a pen. I'm just making this little triangle shape. Okay. Just like that. And it needs to be a little bit exaggerated, so it needs to go just a little bit further down. Just like the arrows on the street, you know, they're kind of longer than they should need to be, right? So that finishes off the 3. And then the 8, this one's a little bit tougher because it's going to go down underneath into a potentially compromising position from the other side. So I think for now we just leave it at that one, because that's the only one that's glaring. Okay, so now the next step we've got to do is we got to fire up the actual radio system, and we have to plug this in so that we can center that position there. But I think what we'll do is we'll go ahead and pop off this control arm. We'll get this thing inserted. This is a pretty easy step. We've already kind of located approximately where we need it. Not just a matter of getting the exact placement. You know what? I know which way this should be. It should be all the way up in the center. Oh, and then one other thing I did off camera is I made a hole big enough for this to fit into. Okay? And we do have a little bit of adjustment, but I don't want to be way off. So let's go ahead and just get this moved to the center to be on the safe side. Now, of course, we could feed this thing through here, and that's what we'll do just as a test to see how hard it is to do this. And then when we pull this out, all we have to do is just get the extension cord and unplug it each time if we need to gain access. Now, of course, it's going to be glued in here shortly, so that's only going to be a convenience while we're doing this work, but such is life in model airplanes. Okay, so we're in the Airbus A380, throttle cuts on, sticks down. Always a good idea to check both of those. I just want to move this in case I would have some sort of activity on the engines. Okay, so I want to lift the tail. It's going to open up, drop it down. Then I don't want this to flip sideways or anything weird. Okay, so I'm going to just reach in there. Whoops. I don't want that rudder to fall off. That's why I'm trying to be careful. Like that. It's not probably a big deal since it's attached, but it's just more annoying than anything. Go through all that effort and then have something break. Okay, so all I've got to do is just try to fish that thing out. Once it's fished out, we should be good. So I'm going to pause it and do that real quick. Okay, so I fished that thing out and I made sure that it went on top of the servo tray instead of underneath, okay? And so what I found when I did that is that the length of cable on the dual elevators is going to be a little bit shorter. So here in a little bit we can actually tie that up neatly so it's all together. So now we need to, or excuse me, that's not true, because we need to go to this thing. This is where we're going to actually plug in the rudder, is on this Y cable now, because we're already hooked up to the nose gear, the steerable nose gear, which has a servo as well. And when we're all said and done, we'll actually glue all these connection points with hot glue, of course. That can be out of the way now. And then we may put a shorter extension cord, but just remember that's going to stay attached when you open this up. I actually had thought about soldering connection points for this steerable nose gear so that when you pull this off, there's no actual wire connection. So, but I'm not sure I'm going to do that. I haven't decided. It depends on if I go for retracts later on in the build series. And by the way, that's not going to happen before the maiden at all. So, don't get too excited about that yet. Remember, the radio is already on. Okay, so now, I love the noise of all those ESCs initiating. That's so cool. It's especially cool because there's so many of them. Okay, so now, when I rudder, so you see this wheel? It's turning that way. So it would turn the plane like this, and watch what happens. So that'll pull the rudder this way. So it would go like this, which is going to turn the plane that way. So we've got them going the same direction, which is critical. But now we can look at the amount of throw. Oh yes, we gave plenty of clearance, guys. When it's all said and done, we can actually possibly take that off and paint it. Or maybe even put a piece of heat shrink over it that's blue. Okay, so now that we have that position where we know it is going to end up, we can go ahead and start the process of pulling this back out. See? Now that this is out, we can go ahead and unplug it. We know where it's going to be. We don't want this to fall in though, so we're going to actually double it back on itself like this. And that's going to stop it from falling down in there. Okay? So now at this point we can either shut off the power by disconnecting the battery, or we just leave it on if you had a lot of power left. Alright, so now we know where the home position is, or the center position is. So now we can tell. Now I had it back here, but now I'm sitting thinking, why did I have it back there? It should be up here, guys. And I know why I did that, because I wanted to stay away from the logo, but this really should be right next to the hinge point to make it work proper. But that was a little bit of an oversight on my part, because you see what's right here? That's the hinge, guys. So if I try to stick it in there, I'm going to be going straight through the hinge. Now that's not the end of the world. I'll just have to cut the hole big enough to fit this through. So we'll have to use heat, because we're going through the Dubrow hinge, which is plastic. So I think we're going to have to do that. Not the end of the world, but it's not ideal either. So now I need to bend this thing. Guys, that was an oversight. I'm glad I didn't cut that in, Because if we went way back here on the rudder, we'd have a weird wonky motion. We want it to be up here. And the other thing we could do is we could come right up here, but then we're going to be right into the 8. I think we're going to do it right there. It's just simply going to have to be right in the middle of the hinge because I made that oversight, guys. And that's the unfortunate nature of these things. You're bound to make a mistake or two on a project with this many stupid steps. That's all it was, just a stupid mistake. It's no big deal. Okay, so now we need some wire. Something that we can heat up that I can melt straight through with. So I'm going to take, just looking through these little wires here. That one's a pretty big wire, so I don't want that. This one's already been heated up. It's got that dark end on it, so we'll use that. Okay. Let's feed it all the way through. Hot end down. Okay, now pull this back out quick. Okay? So now we have a hole, but it's not going to be big enough to fit the plastic through yet, because we have to actually open that up. And this is going to help cover some of our indiscretion here. So we want to use the hot end through this side, okay? Okay, so now on the other side, we want to have an exit hole that's already predefined, or it's going to be defined for us and it may not be defined exactly where we want it to be. Okay? Okay, so there's our exit hole, which is going to be about the right size. You do have to start from the start position on the hole. So now we're going to try to put this through and it's not going to go. Yeah, because now we have to go ahead and open up the hole all the way. So I'm going to go ahead and switch to this tool, which is just an X-Acto knife. Get it hot like it's re-entering the atmosphere. I don't know why that's my analogy for tonight. Okay. So now I can see the hole is getting bigger. So we're going to try this again. I don't think it's going to go yet either. Interesting part is you could almost use that as your keeper and not have to use that back plate. But I don't think we're going to get so lucky as to have that work out. Now I'm going to heat a little bit up on the middle area here. Because that way I can guide it in, because I want to cut a different way this time, okay? Okay, so that let me control the cut a little bit more in the middle. Yes. Okay, so I don't like that because it's at a stupid angle now. I'm not sure why it ended up going at a stupid angle. Probably because I cut the hole at a stupid angle. But you see it's actually acting as a backer plate now. So I just have to be a little bit more careful and get that squared up. Okay, so get it nice and hot. Okay, so now I need to actually take and use the knife. Get that extremely hot this time. And then come in there and just open it up at the angle we need. Okay, so now it's at the angle we need-ish. Okay, so the black is hiding nicely. That looks good. So now I'm hoping this makes it all the way through, because right now it's not coming all the way through, so we may have to just fill that up with CA, which should be fine actually, because I mean we're just moving this one control surface. It's not like we're moving a landing gear or something like that. Okay, so then this is going to point off at just a slight angle, which actually worked to our advantage. And then our bend will need to be like right there. So I'm just going to put my thumb right where I want to bend it. I'll grab this because it's got this nice flat surface. Give it a nice bend. And then we'll give it another bend right back. And so usually I'll take and do it like this. Get that square first. And I'll hold it really tight. Of course, I'm not getting it very tight here yet. That's not going to bend for me like that. I got to get into something a little sturdier. Okay, so I'm holding that super tight. I don't know if that's going to be tight enough, guys. That might be a little bit too much. A little bit too much play in that zigzag there. So I'm going to just try to straighten this up a little bit. And I'll bend that back. Okay, so we'll see how that goes. Yeah, I'm not sure about this yet. I have more than one of these, so we'll make it happen one way or another, right? Alright, cool. So now, the funny thing is about these, is they're actually pretty easy to cut. See how easy that was? It's one thing that's weird about those, because they're pretty thick. It's a little toasty. Okay, so we're just looking for more burrs and stuff on there. Looks pretty good, actually. Okay, I can touch it now, so it's not going to melt the plastic, that's for sure. So now we should be able to go ahead and slide that in to the top hole. Make the bend. And then in it to win it. Oh, we need to overbend it, that's right, because we're slight angle difference. Okay, so I need to hang on to both of these sides and then twist it if I can twist it. Okay, you see what I'm talking about, overbending it? I don't know if I got enough overbending. We might need to go just a touch more. So you can also grab here and do that. Okay. So we'll slip that in there. Cool. Oh yeah, we're pretty good on that. So now I just need to twist this in to make our adjustment to get it square. Of course, we can cut it again if we have to really go crazy with that adjustment. Okay, and I want it to have to pull. I want it to have to pull up to open. Oh, looks like another couple. Yet another one. Okay. So now we'll hold that where it needs to belong. Not quite there. I usually double what I think it needs to be, actually, because I'm usually underestimate on those. Well, that's pretty close. Now I'm going to go singularly. I went too far, guys. Alright, so now let's test it for proper fit. We haven't glued in the control arm yet. But the other thing we got to do is, now I would like this to pull up to open, but you also see how close those threads are, guys. If those threads are too close, it's going to touch when this pivots, and that'll be a problem for us. So let's test it. Power, throttle cut. Power to the plane. Okay, and then we'll plug this in here. You gotta plug it in the right way still, huh? It's always awkward to do this with one hand. Oh, okay, so we're not quite square yet. That's good, I gotta actually shoot it out some, which is what I needed. Was really hoping that would be true. Okay, so there's one turn, or 2 half turns, if you will. Okay, so we're pretty close now. Checking for proper clearance on the hinge. Okay. This is clipped in, so we can drop that down. I normally don't use those clip things unless I know I need them. That action is very good. We're not giving up a thing, guys. Look at that. Look at that. That is awesome. Oh, that looks so cool, guys. It's going the correct direction. So is the wheel. Okay? So I want to turn it this way, it goes that way. I want to turn it this way, it goes that way. Perfect. Okay, so now we need to glue that in. And so in order to glue that in, we don't really have to take the rudder off, but we're going to have to take the rudder off to spread the glue anyway. And so we do need to probably go ahead and pull it off for that reason. Turn the cable on itself just like that. Alright, so now what we need to do is just glue that in with CA. And lucky for us, we have an access hole from the other side. Oh, that sounded bad. Here we go. I'll let that stuff run in there a little bit. And I'm going to grab the kicker. This is medium foam safe CA. I'm just going to put a drip of the CA kicker right there around it. Remember, we have some paint, so it's going to have a tendency to make this run, so you do not want to overdo it here with the kicker. Be very careful. One more big drip on top. And to be honest with you, I don't even mind having that one spot. But I'll still probably go ahead and try to soak it up, because that will make your paint run if you're not careful. Okay. So just soak it up. Try not to agitate too much, because it's the agitation with the chemical qualities is going to cause it to come off. Okay. So we'll just spread it very lightly and just let it dry with the air. Now on the other side, now that we've got that done, we obviously will have glued from the inside quite a bit. So we're just going to do around the edge in a thick bead. Okay. Then we're going to actually bridge up on top of it. And it's just going to make a big boot that's stuck right there. Okay. Now I can take this, which already has kicker on it, and I can do that, but I'm going to do it this way instead first. Otherwise the top of the surface will stick. Okay, one little dip, and just work around. Remember, this paint will run with kicker, okay? So be sparing as you can be and get the job done. And still get the job done, okay? Perfect. In fact, you can actually use that to clean up some of your paint if you don't like the way it turned out. I do that all the time, actually. And it works really nice. That's pretty good stuff. Okay, great. So now that should be hypothetically glued in there. Got, a little teeny bit of play. I think we're okay there, though. And then this doesn't bother me so much. But if it did bother you, you could adjust it. Okay, we're going to pause it for just a second, give you a final look at it. Okay, so don't forget to trim this down. Normally I don't encourage this before we try flying it. So I'm gonna leave one hole just in case. Okay, but we're probably not going to need it, so I'm sure that's a big, huge waste of time. Okay, so now why do we do that? This is all about looks now. Okay. I don't want to say it's invisible, but it's a lot less visible than it was. And if you really want to get aggressive, you paint this whole thing blue, and then you paint white right here. So that the only time that it doesn't line up is when the action's not being used. Okay, so now the last step, of course, in the rudder will be to glue it in. And at this point, I see no reason not to glue it in. So we're going to go ahead and get that done. Guys, this rudder has been a lot of work, hasn't it? But mostly because I'm super anal retentive on a million little things. Okay, so now we need to also get the hot glue going, so I'm going to plug this hot glue gun in. Even though we've got that clip, we're still going to go ahead and hot glue stuff. And we also have this little clip we can use for later too, which is kind of cool to have a little extra like that. Because those things are weird. Sometimes you have one break. Okay, so what we're going to do on this is going to be pretty simple. We're waiting on the hot glue to get hot, but we can start getting this glue spread in here, okay? So we're just going to go fairly heavy on the glue. And why do we go fairly heavy? Because this is a critical member of the flight, or of the airplane. So, of the flight, what am I saying? Geez. So we're just going to go real heavy on the bottom, and then we'll spread it once we get that in there, okay? We'll use a Q-tip to spread it around. Bearing in mind that there is a limit. I mean, if you get too much in there, it's going to make it hard to displace into there to the right angle. Because it'll actually hold up the thing. Okay? So now you want to get just a little bit on only the flat bottom. Not on the sides. It will squeeze out if you're not careful. Okay, so I'm just going to tell you, don't even put it on the sides. Okay? Trust me on this one. Okay, so we can cap that off. And then we can start spreading this. Now this you can spread on the sides. Okay, because this is going to push down as you go. Now that glue will stay on this wire, so we may take a second and clean that off because you don't want that to get stuck inside there. Okay, so I'm just spinning this up onto the sides, okay? It's very critical, get it on the sides. Okay. Keeping in mind as you pull this out the first time, it's going to try to spread and pull some of that decal off. So get it right the first time if you can. See, I've already pulled some off. That's exactly what I was talking about. So be careful what you touch. Okay, so we got that spread. We got it working. Pull the stringies off. Now I want you to take this and just pull that glue off that got onto the wire if you did get any on there. Okay, it'll just roll up just like it does on anything else. And okay, while we're at it, I'm going to use the flat part of the Q-tip, and I'm going to kind of activate this glue by rolling up the length of it. Now that's going to pull off some of the excess, and that's okay, because we're just going to roll back the other way. Okay. This is a very important step. It'll make that glue so dang sticky that you'll have a heck of a time pulling it out if you wanted to. Okay? Then this can just sit there and dry. Okay, so this is warm now. Warm enough to be used for what we're doing here, which is just security of the cable. We just want to make 100% certain that that sucker is not going to come undone. Okay? 100% sure. And don't let it touch your plane. Okay? I don't care if you got to drop that stupid hot glue gun on the floor. Too much time invested in this to have some stupid problem happen because of the hot glue gun. Okay, so it's in it to win it. Slipping it down. Pushing it down. Pushing it down. Pushing it down. Pushing it down. Now we can grab the hot glue gun. Get that put back where it belongs. I'm so glad to have that stupid rudder done. I'm getting a little sick of it. I can't believe you guys are still watching. But I'll tell you what. This thing better fly good now that I got that much work in it. That's just a rudder. I still got to do the landing gear. Throttle cuts on. It's like I keep saying, guys, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Oh, that is so cool. Okay, stabilizer's all the way up. So when I move this, see? It's exactly right. Okay, stabilizer's on, off, on, off, on, off, on, down, barely working, perfect. Ailerons, elevator, rudder. She lives! That is so cool, guys. Okay, let's give you a shot from the other side. Oh yes, it's so gorgeous. Thanks for watching, guys. Check the link in the description below. Help support our channel by buying stuff from those links. And as always, we really appreciate you being a part of this experience. Next step coming up. Landing gear extravaganza. And that's exactly what it's going to be. An extravaganza. Be part of it. You know where to find us.